What's going on, guys? JPB Duel here. Hope you guys are enjoying your Tuesday. And for today's matchup, we have an Adventures Pranks versus a Dark Lord Despia, with my opponent playing Dark Lord Despia going first. Now, this is a big question mark for me as to what my opponent was actually playing, because it is a DC match. That means you cannot check your opponent's deck list. But since my opponent does end up going into the first Dark Lord, I believe he was playing a Dark Lord Despia. And my hand is pretty much useless at this point. I have no hand traps whatsoever. No Maxi, no Ash, no Nib, no Imperm. That means my opponent gets a full combo off, and boy did he get a full combo off. This dude just pops off. He gets the Dramaturger in his hand by banishing the Tragedy, normals out the Aluber, even had the Friper Patchwork to search for his Poly plus the Chain, goes off. Goes into the first Dark Lord, activates the card sent to the graveyard, chain blocks with the Tragedy, activates the first Dark Lord as well to put a monster on the field by paying 1000 life points. So there is the chain resolution. He gets the ad libitum, he gets the Tragedy, plus he gets the Dramaturger on the field. The ad libitum activates, boosts up his monster's card. He sets down one card, ends his turn. Now we all know what this face down card could be, since I am playing against a Dark Lord Despia, basically a Despia matchup. It could be a Super Poly, it could be a Branded in red, it could be any of those fusion cards that allows my opponent to go into his fusion monster. And the fusion monster my opponent would end up putting on the field at this point, it could be either the Tax Dragon or the Chimera. Yes, this is after the Chimera got released. This video is after the Chimera got released. So it could have gone either way. So first of all, I draw into my right. What do? We try to bait out the back row set with our right, because we know that once I get the adventure token plus the Draco back, I will be able to bounce one card on the field. My opponent chains his Dark Lord, pays 1000 life points, puts Aluber on the field. Aluber activates, searches him for a Branded in red. Then we get our Faithful Adventure on the field. Seeing this, my opponent instantly activates Super Poly. Now, this is when I think that maybe, just maybe, my opponent popped the Super Poly way too early. Now, you guys will know when I say it's way too early. So he activates the Super Poly, and using the Super Poly, takes away the Dramaturger plus the, I believe, Tragedy, and goes into his Tax Dragon, which is the Masquerade Dragon. Activates the Tragedy and the Dramaturger in the graveyard. It whole thing resolves, Dramaturger specials itself on the field again, and Tragedy adds him an Aluber in his hand. Now, since the Tax Dragon is on the field, anytime I try to activate something, it's going to tax me for 600 life points. So I know with this, first thing I have to bounce with the Draco back is the Masquerade Dragon. I cannot allow this dragon to stay on the field. Otherwise, I will end up burning myself to really low amount of life points, maybe even not get the full combo off on my side for the Butler on my opponent's turn before I end up burning myself. So that's the first thing we do. We activate the Faithful Adventure, search for a Griffin Rider, discard the Draco back, and then, as you guys all know, the combo for the Adventures token, we attach the Rider, put the Wandering Griffin Rider on the field again. That way it serves as our Omni Negate. So this way, once I go into my Prank Kids combo, if my opponent has Nib or Ash, I will be able to chain block for one thing. Yes, I know. I know the normal combo is putting your Prank Kids on the field, searching for your Draco back, and then going into a Griffin Rider to chain block the first graveyard activation of the Ash Blossom. But I did not want to get burned for that much. I probably would have gotten burned for, I think, 2 more times if I did that. So I wanted to stay as healthy as possible. That's the reason why I did it this way. If my opponent had Ash Blossom, I would not care about it. I had Cross out in my hand. Also, if he had a Nib, afterwards, I could still use my Griffin Omni and negate the Nib as well. So I was safe on both points. That's the reason why I was trying to save as much life points as possible in case this game turns into a grindy matchup. So with that, we go into our Prank Kids combo. We get all our graveyard activations. My opponent has no hand traps in his hand whatsoever. We know, I think, 2 cards he has in his hand. One is a Polymerization, I believe, and another one is a Branded in red that he just searched this turn. Now, as soon as my Doodle-Doo comes on the field, he he activates his Dramaturg to negate my Doodle-Doo. Dramaturg is a negate on the field, not a monster destruction, and I was okay with this. I keep telling you guys, as long as you start with Pandemonium or Pranks in your hand, your Doodle-Doo getting negated does not stop your combo whatsoever. It is an extremely good way to bait out your opponent's negates on your Doodle-Doo if you start with a Pandemonium or Pranks in your hand, because you can just use the Fanzy's graveyard activation, throw away the other card you need into the graveyard, go into your second Doodle-Doo, and you tribute that Doodle-Doo, pull out that card from the graveyard, add it to your hand, and basically your whole Butler combo is still secure. It does not deviate from the combo. It's pretty much a standard combo you do, so that way it baits out your opponent's negate. With this, we go into our token, we go into Bow Wow, and since I was forced into going Roxy's, I had to activate Roxy's from the graveyard. I had to banish one card from my hand. I chose to banish the Dropsies from my hand, which I would suggest you never do, because this will disrupt your totally awesome combo on your next turn, because you will not be able to put 2 copies of Dropsies on the field. So I don't like doing it this way, but I had to since my opponent negated my Doodle-Doo Search. And with that, I draw into a Fancies, set down my Crossout, I just end my turn. I do not even bother killing this Aluber. Why? Because I know I want to go into my Butler on my opponent's turn, and if I kill this Aluber this turn and I pop my opponent's field with the Butler, the first pop that I do, he can negate the fusion monsters getting destroyed by banishing his branded opening from the graveyard. So if he has any fusion monsters, they will not get destroyed by first Butler pop. And since Aluber is in the graveyard, afterwards, if it sees a fusion monster getting popped, because I wanted to get my second Butler pop as well, to pop his fusion monsters once he goes into his fusion monsters, that Aluber will come back on the field. And we also know he has another Aluber in his hand. So if he gets another Aluber on the field, that's going to be really bad for us. He could probably go into his combo again afterwards. Did not want that happening. So that is the reason why I did not pop this Aluber on the field this turn. Opponent's draw phase, we activate Bow Wow, get our cards from the graveyard into our hand. Now this guy was trying to go into a fusion monster. I believe what he was trying to go into was another Tax Dragon. It could not have been the Chimera, because Chimera cannot pop my cards on the field this turn. My Prank Kids cards. Prank Kids monster cards to be specific, once my Bow Wow resolves. So I was not too worried about him going into the Chimera. What I was thinking was he was going into his Tax Dragon, try to tax me to death again. So we use the Griffin Omni, negate the branded in red. Do not want to see this happen. Negate the branded in red, our Bow Wow Bark resolves, we get our components for the Butler combo into our hand. Now keep in mind, this is another really good thing for us, because if he pushes past 5 specials, I could first nib my opponent, then use my Pandemonium, go into my Butler, because I already have all the materials I required for the Butler combo in my hand. I do not need to care about this card on the field. Yes, it will pop my token as well, but I don't care about the token being on the field either, because I could just use the Fateful Adventures, get another Enchantress, get a token on the field that way. So I was hoping for my opponent to push past 5 specials first. That is the first special, which is the Tragedy by activation of the Dark Lord. Then he activates the Fright for Patchwork, gets the Poly plus the Chain in his hand, goes into attack mode with his monsters, activates Polymerization, goes into Guardian Chimera. Now, Chimera is a non-targeted destruction, meaning once it resolves, that is when the card destruction happens. So you have to pop your Pandemonium before the Guardian Chimera resolves. This is the reason why I hate non-targeted destruction cards as well, because you have to pop Pandemonium at this point. You cannot just sit on the Pandemonium. Once you activate Pandemonium, you cannot nib your opponent afterwards, because Pandemonium locks you into Prank Kids monsters only, and nib is not a Prank Kids monster. Right here, I have to chain link my Pandemonium to the activations that my opponent does from his graveyard. All the activations, 4 activations I believe. Then we chain link our Pandemonium to it, put our Butler on the field right here, right now. So that way, once the Guardian Chimera resolves, it can only pop back row set cards plus a token, and that's it. Don't have to worry about our butler getting popped. Because our Baba Bark did get its activation off, that means our Prank's monsters are immune to destruction through card effects this turn. He gets all his activations resolved, targets and pops my token plus my crossout designator on the field. I'm still okay with that. I have not pushed past 5 specials, so I don't care about my opponent trying to nib me. And right here, once I get my own graveyard activations, I will use my Butler's first pop. So the Butler's first pop will go through, and my opponent will chainlink its branded opening, banish the branded opening to make the fusion monster immune to destruction through card effects once this turn. So they don't get destroyed, I'm okay with it. If my opponent does normal summon a card, try to go into his combo afterwards, I could just use my Butler's second pop and be okay with it. Now if I was in my opponent's position, this is the worst thing you can do. If you were in this Despia player's position, what you should have done is gone straight into battle phase, targeted the Butler with the Dark Lord or the Chimera, killed it off, and then go into your combo afterwards on main phase 2. That way it secures your board. You at least have something on the board after the Butler pops go through. My opponent again misplays big time. He goes into his Fallen of Albaz, to which I respond with immediately triggering my Butler. Because once this Fallen of Albaz resolves, I know he's going to take away my Butler on the field and go into a Starving Venom or maybe a Mud Dragon, whatever he wants to go into from his extra deck. Did not want to see that happen. So I immediately pop my Butler, send it to the graveyard, pop my opponent's field. And since the Fallen of Albaz is not on the field, that means the effect of the Fallen will not resolve. Fallen has to use itself as a material along with another card on the field to go into the fusion monster. If the Fallen is off of the field, it will not resolve. So we do that. My opponent activates Aluber from the graveyard, activates a branded opening from his hand, targeting my Dropsies with the Aluber, puts itself on the field. With the opening, he searches for a Tragedy. I'm okay with that, don't care about it. He already used up his normal summon. Goes into battle phase, kills off my Roxys. Again, the worst choice of a card to kill. Draw phase, we draw into Maxi, doesn't matter much. It's a good card for our opponent's turn, but not that important at this point. With that, we start going into our combo climb with the Dropsies that I had on the field. Again, Lamb's activation, chain block with your Doodle-Doo. I did not care about this Doodle-Doo going through. I wanted to put as many materials as I can on the field. Why? Because we're going towards our Axial Code combo to kill our opponent this turn itself. Now, keep in mind, once I activate Access Code and kill the Aluber, that means my opponent will not have any cards on the field. So, what does that mean? That means if my opponent had an Imperm in his hand, he could have activated the Imperm and Impermed my Access Code. So Access Code would go down to 2,300 attack points. That means it's not enough for a lethal at this point. Yes, I still had my normal summon left. I could have normal summoned out the Lamseys and ended my opponent's, game that way. But what I decided to do was not normal out my Lamseys. I was thinking, what if he had a nib in his hand? What if he had some other thing that could destroy my Lamseys on the field? So what I decided to do was activate my Faithful Adventure, get the Enchantress, and put the token on the field. That way, if my opponent nibs me, I could still go into main phase 2, go into my combo afterwards. It would not have been a full combo because obviously we already did our full combo to go into Access Code, but I'll at least be able to put a card on the field, and with the pranks, I could recycle and maybe, hopefully, draw into a Prank Kids monster to go into a Weather Washer with the Pandemonium set on the field. That was basically my whole thought process at that point when I was playing the game. I wanted to secure my next turn in case I cannot kill my opponent this turn. With that, we activate Access Code, pop the Aluber, and apparently my opponent did not have anything in his hand. I was overthinking it, so Access Code just kills my opponent outright. That's going to be the end of the game, guys. If you guys do enjoy this kind of videos, please consider hitting the like button, subbing to my channel for more daily prank video uploads, and if you guys are interested in the live version of all of this. I do live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/jpbduel. Link along with my schedule and a link to my Discord will be in the video description itself for you guys to check out. This is JPBduel signing out for today. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!